Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be the first video in a series of videos I'm calling Caregiver 101, which is basically like what it sounds like, videos about caregivers, caregiver advice, what a caregiver is, all that kind of stuff. And for the first one, I thought I would do tips for new caregivers. I put a little question box up on Instagram asking what you guys would most want to see for this series, and that was like the most highly requested, so we will start there. For those of you who do not know, a caregiver in the age regression sense is someone who essentially like looks after you, takes care of you, plays with you, hangs out with you when you're regressed. And it can also like transfer into other parts of life as well. My caregiver is also my medical caregiver, which is like, that term in the medical community means something a little bit different, but he is my caregiver in multiple senses of the word. Also, if you do not know what age regression is, please read this disclaimer. And then also do some research before watching this video. I have resources in the description, and I also have a video here on my channel all about what age regression is. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into my tips for new caregivers. My first tip, and maybe the most important one, is to be patient with yourself. Like with any new thing, there is definitely a learning curve. Take your time figuring it out and do not be afraid to ask questions or for clarification. Number 2, do your research. There are some resources in the description, and I also have a video about it on my channel, but it's natural to be confused, especially if you've never met someone who age regresses or never come across the community online. That being said, it is really important to have at least a basic understanding of what it is and acknowledge that it can be harnessed as a healthy coping tool before you go forward. Next, and also super important, make sure that you understand the difference between someone who regresses and someone who is in a kink community. Outside of potential things like trauma-induced hypersexuality or sexual symptoms of trauma or mental illness, age regression is never sexual. I am talking about how it is viewed by a third party. A third party should never be viewing age regression as sexual, and it should be never be misconstrued with a kink, because it is not either of those things. And again, I'm talking about like from an outside perspective, not about sexual symptoms of trauma. Next, have the important conversations when your partner isn't regressed. Honestly, caregiving isn't something to jump into, and a healthy caregiving relationship will include, first, a lot of talks about boundaries, expectations, needs, triggers, and this goes for both of you. Number 4, 5, don't know. Set up alternative methods of communication for in case things get overwhelming or if your partner gets triggered while they're regressing. A lot of us can go nonverbal. So for example, if my regression has been triggered by something negative or just comes on a little strong, give my caregiver a code word or a hand signal to let him know that my brain state has changed and he can adjust accordingly. Also, go slow when you're figuring out what your dynamic looks like. Don't rush or push things. It's something that takes a lot of communication, vulnerability, trust, and time. And it can also be a lot to get acclimated to, and that's totally valid. Don't be afraid to ask your partner questions. Talk to them about what their regression means to them, what they want, what they don't want, all that stuff. Also, side note, when I'm talking like partner, I'm talking about in like the regression caregiver space. Not everyone that has a caregiver is in a romantic relationship with their caregiver. My caregiver and I are not in a traditional like boyfriend-girlfriend relationship outside of regression. So this like it looks different for everyone. And also when I say dynamic, I'm talking like in the literal definition of the word, not in like the kink term of like a role play power imbalance dynamic. I'm just talking about like literally a dynamic, the same way like you can have a dynamic with anybody. Remember that it is about the little things. For most regressors, the little things are the most important. They let us know that you're thinking about us and considering our regression. They make our inner child feel seen and heard. This can include things like buckling our seatbelt for us, bringing us a cute snack on like a cute plate as opposed to like a regular plate, bringing us a stuffed animal, talking to us through a stuffed animal, little things like that, just like little gestures. Also important is reassurance. Give us reassurance that you enjoy being our caregiver and learning what that means to you, that you accept and love our regressed side, and that you would never judge us for it. And also, the reassurance should go both ways. Like, you should definitely be getting reassurance from your partner, who is the age regressor, that you're doing a good job and they appreciate what you're doing for them as their caregiver. Next up, when stepping up to be a caregiver, make sure that you are going to be able to allocate time for your partner's regression. Of course, regression can also come and go throughout the day involuntarily, depending on your schedules. Also try and set aside time for voluntary therapeutic regression. This could literally be like taking 10 minutes to play like a quick game or do an activity like coloring, or it can be turning like a whole Friday night into like a baby night full of like doing activities, playing, watching kids' movies, etc. Avoid bringing up adult topics or stressful conversations while you're in the allocated regression time. Respect that when it's our time to be small, the other things can wait, like aside from an emergency. For example, if you suddenly remember like it's Wednesday and you have like the electric bill due on Friday, like write it down in your phone, make a note of it for later, and then bring it up once your partner is no longer regressed. Be gentle and be patient when guiding a regressor in and out of the allocated regression time. When it's time to switch gears, do it slowly on both ends. Let your partner's brain adjust and come back to adult life and vice versa. Give positive feedback and reinforcement when your partner is regressed. Understand that during this time, our brains are working completely differently than they normally do. Getting out words can be tough, dealing with emotions can be tough, even our like motor skills can change. Try and be like aware of that and be proud of us when we get something right. Think of yourself less as a parent or authority figure and more so like an older playmate, a babysitter, or even like a stuffed animal come to life. Your job is to comfort, encourage, listen, and have fun. And on that note, if you can, try and tap into your inner child. This can be a time for you to heal too and give your regressor the safe, comfortable environment that you wish you had as a kid or you wish they had as a kid. Try and think back to what being a kid was like and sort of use that sense of empathy in your dynamic. Also on that note, try and relax into our space and sort of down to our level. Essentially, really treat us like a child when we're regressed, but without the sternness unless it's playful. This dynamic should be a shared space, so try taking on this role without an air of like superiority, authority, or power imbalance. This is not a time for serious punishments or rewards, or being overly parental or harsh. Your only concern besides like patience and fun should be for your partner's safety and for their mental health. If you feel that your partner's regression is infringing on either of those things for them, encourage them to talk about it with a clinician, as that is not something you should be trying to tackle on your own. And lastly, try to be honest with your needs and your place in the process as your dynamic develops. It's okay to ask for help and it's okay to tweak things where changes need to be made. This dynamic should and sort of needs to feel happy and healthy for both of you, and if that isn't the case, it's really important to be honest about it. Being a caregiver is definitely not necessarily for everyone, and that is okay. All in all, as long as your heart is in the right place, the rest will just fall in line. You're providing an amazing and healing presence to someone who's been able to be very vulnerable and open with you, and that is a very beautiful thing. So cherish it, and I hope that this video helped. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.